So, there I was, minding my own business, when bang! Inspiration struck. Not literally, of course. That would be a lawsuit waiting to happen. No, this was the kind of inspiration that hits you like a sugar rush after a particularly stressful day. You know, the kind that makes you believe you can conquer the world. One hilarious sentence at a time. I'd always loved writing. Blogging, journaling, grocery lists that looked suspiciously like epic poems. Words were my jam. And in that moment, I was convinced I had a bestseller trapped inside me, just bursting to get out. A book so funny, so touching, so utterly relatable that people would be lining up to throw money at me. Okay, maybe not lining up, but a girl can dream, right? The initial excitement was intoxicating. I pictured myself on talk shows being interviewed by Oprah, my book a permanent fixture on the New York Times bestseller list. I even practiced my humble yet witty author photo face in the mirror. Turns out it's harder than it looks. But then reality set in. Actually writing a book? That sounded a lot like work. And not the fun kind of work, like reorganizing your sock drawer or trying to make a cake without a recipe. This was serious. Put your nose to the grindstone, probably shouldn't have eaten all those cookies kind of work. Still, I was determined. I had an idea, a laptop, and a healthy fear of my own potential. What could possibly go wrong? Oh, honey, you have no idea. Remember that sugar rush I mentioned earlier? Yeah, that faded pretty quickly. Turns out writing a book is a marathon, not a sprint. Who knew? Besides everyone who's ever written a book, that is. My first draft was, well, let's just say it was an experience. A literary roller coaster ride through the depths of my imagination, complete with plot holes you could drive a truck through and characters that changed names more often than I changed my mind. It was a beautiful, messy, hilarious disaster. There were days I felt like a literary genius, my fingers practically dancing across the keyboard. And then, there were days I stared at the screen for hours, willing words to magically appear. Spoiler alert, they rarely did. I learned the hard way that writer's block is a real thing and it's not afraid to use your self-doubt as a punching bag. But slowly, painstakingly, I chipped away at it. I wrote in coffee shops, on park benches, even in the bathtub. Don't judge, it seemed like a good idea at the time. I learned to embrace the chaos, to find humor in the struggle, and to accept that my first draft would probably never see the light of day. Seriously, it's for the best, trust me. If writing the first draft was a marathon, editing was like climbing Mount Everest. Backwards, in the snow, barefoot. You get the picture. It was brutal. Every comma felt like a life or death decision. Every sentence, a potential masterpiece. Or a dumpster fire. Thank goodness for beta readers, those brave souls who willingly subject themselves to the torture of reading your unfinished work. Their feedback was invaluable, even when it made me want to crawl under a rock and never come out. Okay, especially when it made me want to do that. I learned that killing your darlings is a real thing, and it's just as painful as it sounds. Entire chapters were deleted, characters were rewritten, and plot points were twisted beyond all recognition. It was a bloodbath, but a necessary one. By the end of the editing process, I was fairly certain I'd aged a decade. My caffeine intake had reached alarming levels, and I was pretty sure I'd developed a permanent eye twitch. But I'd done it. I had a finished manuscript, a real, actual, ready-to-be unleashed upon the world manuscript. All that was left was everything else. Now, I'm not gonna lie, the tech side of self-publishing terrified me. Formatting, ISBNs, what even was a Mobi file? It all felt like some kind of secret code that only the tech-savvy were privy to. That's where Draft2Digital came in, like a beacon of hope in a sea of confusing acronyms. Suddenly, all those scary terms started to make sense. Draft 2. Digital held my hand, virtually of course, through the entire process. They made formatting feel like a game, a slightly stressful game, but still a game, and they explained things in a way that even my technologically challenged brain could understand. And then, just like that, my book was a real thing. A PDF, an EPUB, a Mobi. It was available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, all those places I'd only ever dreamed of seeing my name on. It was surreal, exhilarating, and slightly terrifying all at the same time. I spent an embarrassing amount of time just refreshing the sales pages, convinced that the moment I looked away, my book would disappear back into the ether. It didn't, thankfully. Draft2Digital is much more reliable than my anxiety-ridden brain.